Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk. This is Yitzhak Ruvain speaking to you from south of Jerusalem here in the holy, beautiful land of Israel. Today is the 7th day of the month of Av, 5784. It's August 6th, 2024. This coming Shabbat, we begin the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim in Hebrew, beginning with Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 1, and concluding with chapter 3, verse 22. We'll be talking all about Devarim, the first parsha from the book of Devarim, in just a few minutes. You may have noticed that there was no music introducing the show today, and that's because we're in the 9 days. The 9 days of Av, the first 9 days of Av, which are the last 9 days of the 3 weeks, which began approximately 2 weeks ago on the 17th of Tammuz, which of course was a fast day. And of course, we are in these 3 weeks of traditionally mourning the loss, the destruction of the Holy Temple, both the first Holy Temple and the second Holy Temple. But here in modern day Israel, our mourning is only one aspect of what's happening actually on the ground and what's happening in our hearts, which is the yearning and the preparation for the rebuilding of the Holy Temple. There are some people who the Holy Temple comes into focus during the 3 weeks. And during those 3 weeks, they think about the Holy Temple perhaps, and they say, it's such a shame, wouldn't that be great? And then the 3 weeks end, Tisha B'Av, the full day fast concludes, and, the Holy Temple, the Beit HaMikdash is off their agenda. But certainly we in the Temple Institute, the Holy Temple is what we're all about. And so it's always at the top of our agenda. But more and more people here in Israel are focusing on the Holy Temple, not just during the 3 weeks, but throughout the year. And many, many people, even far and beyond the Temple Institute, to tell you the truth, are active in doing what they can to help make the rebuilding of the Holy Temple a reality. And so, yes, during these 3 weeks, we make great efforts to share our enthusiasm about the Holy Temple, our dreams about rebuilding the Holy Temple, and our understanding of the importance of the Holy Temple for the nation of Israel and for the entire world. And it's never been more needed, more necessary than right now. The situation of the world today just seems to be a complete mess. Societies seem to be breaking down in the West, in the East, in the North, in the South. And anarchy and chaos seems to be taking over the streets of many of the major cities and nations of the world. And nothing would bring peace and unity, I think, more than the reestablishment of the Holy Temple, a place where all people can convene and not only worship the one God, but bask in the presence of the one God. And bask in one another's presence, because when we realize and understand that there's one God and that God created all of us, then we realize that we are all brothers and sisters, and to respect one another and to love one another is to respect and love and honor our Creator. So yeah, we take these 3 weeks to not simply mourn and beat our breast and say, oh, we messed up, and oh, our ancestors screwed up, and what are we going to do now? Well, we know what we can do now. Again, generations who preceded us, who lived in the exile and lived in some pretty difficult conditions, they could not conceive of what it would be like to actually be in a position back in the land of Israel and be in a position where rebuilding the Holy Temple is not simply a dream or a prayer, but a very real possibility and a reality that can happen if we work consistently, persistently, and patiently, I must add, and intelligently, but with faith that it can happen. We can make it happen. The world is changing all around us. Dramatic events are happening all around us. Of course, as you know, Israel has been threatened with retaliation from Iran and all its proxies for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, the arch-terrorist who is a leader of Hamas, who much of the Western politicians and media have described after his assassination as a moderate, a mediator, someone who could make a deal to release the hostages, Israeli hostages. No, he was none of those things. He was a terrorist. He was a thief because he stole billions and billions of dollars from the Palestinians of Gaza. He was a multi-billionaire. And he was a butcher. He was a sadist and a manipulator. And good riddance to him. And his assassination and the assassination that took place just hours before in Beirut of the head military leader of Hezbollah, I don't remember his name, but he was the one who was responsible for the bombing in Beirut in the 1980s, which killed more than 240 U.S. Marines. He was assassinated, and this has thrown our enemies into disarray. And now Iran, of course, threatened a massive retaliation, and now I think they're probably wondering what they're really going to do because, first of all, Israel has exposed their vulnerabilities. Secondly, Israel is poised to wreak havoc on Iran, not simply on Hezbollah and Lebanon, but on Iran should Israel be attacked. So they're, I think, thinking twice. I think that they are, to use the old expression, a bit of a paper tiger. They talk loud, and they have certainly created a international network of terror, but I think they are not as strong as I would like anybody to believe, and I think that they're pretty cowardly. The leadership of Iran, and of course everybody makes a distinction between the Islamic regime in Iran and the Iranian people, many of whom, a vast majority of who would like to just get rid of that regime, and vast majority, I think, who are open and friendly toward Israel and toward the West. But in the meantime, we are expecting some kind of attack, a missile attack, probably from 7 different directions. The United States has sent a vast naval presence and military presence to our neighborhood over the past few days. You never know with the current American administration. What does that mean? Does that mean that is that a message to Iran to stand down? Is that a message to Israel not to retaliate? And of course, with that American presence, military presence in the region, America could easily say to Iran, just don't do it. Because if you do, we will destroy you within days. But I don't expect that that is the message that the American administration is giving to Iran. I think probably they're saying, okay, let's discuss what we'll let you do. Let's discuss the level of retaliation that will allow you to get away with. As that's how they did it last time, and it's a very feckless way of trying to manage the world, and we've seen the results. The world's in chaos, and the leaders of the axis of evil are all, watching very closely and licking their lips, and every time they see signs of American weakness, wavering, or just lack of purpose, direction, they know that's a perfect opportunity to push forward in their quest to undermine the West and to sow more and more chaos. So that's where it's at. Israel has positioned itself in a pretty good place for what's coming up next. We have very much, despite reports that are coming out from some Western media, Israel has to a great extent crushed Hamas in Gaza. Israel's not finished in Gaza. It'll still take a long time to completely wipe up and clean up, but the lack of any real response from Hamas is proof that they are pretty much finished, and Israel has created disarray in Hezbollah and in Iran with these assassinations, and Israel all the time, while it's being bombarded for the last 300 days by Hezbollah, as Israel's also taking out significant sites in southern Lebanon. And just today there's reports of massive fires and fuel tanks in some area in Iran. Nobody knows who started the fires, what happened, but Iran's got to be pretty spooked by the fact that Israel has penetrated their security, and in fact they arrested many people within the Revolutionary Guard, their top military units in Iran, out of suspicion that they have been compromised. They were cooperating with Israel in this assassination. So pray for the best. And one notion that's been going around is that Iran is waiting for Tisha B'Av, for the 9th of Av, to attack. Why? Well, it makes sense. That's the day of historical disasters for Israel. Of course, it's the day of the destruction of the first Holy Temple. It's the day of destruction of the second Holy Temple. It's the day of many other national disasters throughout our 2,000 years of exile. And it's also, of course, the precursor to all these things. It's the day that the spies gave their evil report after being in the land of Canaan, and that's what set off all these other disasters on that day. So it makes great sense that they should pick the 9th. And, ironically, and this was irony, and this was not lost on anybody at the time, that also was the day, the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, was the day that the army removed all the Jewish settlement from Gaza. Way back in 2005, I believe. And why the army picked the 9th of Av, I don't know. But anybody who was at that time aware of what was going on, we knew already that it was a bad idea. And when they chose the 9th of Av, it's sort of sealed that there's not going to be any good side to this. But, however, concerning the Iranian decision, if in fact it is the case, to attack on the 9th, this reminds us of the book of Esther and the story of Purim, where Haman, the arch enemy of the Jews of the Persian Empire, and of course Persia is Iran. Iran is Persia. Decided that he was going to destroy, he was going to wipe out, genocide the Jews. And why were they called Jews? Because they were from Judea. They were exiled after the destruction of the first temple, and they were living throughout the Persian Empire. He was going to have them destroyed. He was going to wage war against them, and the day he chose to do that was the 7th of Adar. And he chose that day because that's the day that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our teacher, who led us out of Egypt, the day he died. So he figured, great, what a great day to attack. It's a day that they lost their greatest leader. What he didn't realize was that the 7th of Adar was also the day that Moshe was born. So it was a very blessed day for Israel, and of course, it blew up in his face. So what's the comparison here? Well, the 9th of Av, which is, in fact, the day of Israel's greatest calamities, greatest disasters, greatest catastrophes, is also, according to our tradition, according to legend, the day that Moshiach, the Messiah, will be born. Because we have this understanding that out of great disaster, out of great tragedy, there's always hope is born, and positive things are born. And so we have the tradition that the 9th of Av is the day that Moshiach will be born. So the Iranians might think that's a great day to attack us, but it's a day that has its positive, super positive side to it, which just hasn't been, revealed to the world yet. But this coming 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av, could very well happen. So another interesting comparison when we talk about the ancient story of Purim and today's Islamic regime in Iran, that just like Haman would like to wipe out the entire nation of Israel, and just like Haman may be choosing its day according to its perception of, just like Bilam was asked to curse Israel, so he tried to find a place where he could get a perspective on the encampment of Israel that would show him a weakness, a place where he could enter a curse. He didn't succeed. But also, the quote supreme leader of Iran, Khamenei, his name sounds a lot like Haman. So there's a lot in common here. A lot of similarities between the story of Purim and what's happening today. And just like we celebrate on Purim our victory over enemies, God willing, we will someday, hopefully soon, be celebrating our victory over our enemies and taking it from there. That is what's happening in the world today. Here in Israel, what's happening in the world today? In England, they're having horrible riots. And we don't have to go into that. We know why they're having horrible riots. And this is a problem that the West has brought upon itself. And the United States has only begun to get a taste of what might be in store for the United States. They have just allowed so many illegal immigrants into the States, and who knows what's going to be. It's a shame. It's a shame that the West, with its progressive and woke ideals, has turned a blind eye to all these things which could very well lead to the destruction of the West. And wouldn't that be something if the Western world finds itself living under Sharia law? All the freedoms, all the freedom of choice, all the equality, all the liberties that the West has and many people take for granted would be lost. And, you can't say afterwards, well, I was rooting for you guys, so why can't you cut me some slack? And it doesn't go that way. Once Islam and Sharia law gets in power, that's it. There's no more elections, no more freedom, there's no more equality, there's no more gender equality, there's no more tolerance of anyone different in practice, in belief, in anything. So wake up, West. You should get unwoke, and you should wake up and start dealing with these issues. That's my suggestion. I imagine I'm preaching to the choir. So let's move on and talk a little bit about Parsha this week. Parshat Devarim. We always read Parshat Devarim and before Tisha B'Av, we also read at Hanan, before the next parsha, before Tisha B'Av. That's how its schedule falls out each year. And the book of Deuteronomy, let's talk about that for a few minutes. It is Deuteronomy is Greek for repetition of the law. And in Hebrew, it also has a second name, Devarim, Deuteronomy, which is Mishnah Torah, which means, again, repetition of the law. And that's mainly because the Ten Commandments are repeated here in the book of Devarim. And many of the other mitzvot, many of the other commandments are also repeated, and some new commandments. But in Hebrew, Devarim, the name of the book is, it's the second word of the first verse of the book of Deuteronomy, and that's usually how things are named. That's always how things are named in the books and in the parshiot of the Torah in Hebrew. But Devarim means words, and it's a very good title for this book because it says these are the words Ele Devarim Asher Diber Moshe El Kol Yisrael Be'ever Yarden Bamidbar Ba'arava Mulsuf Ben Paran Uven Tofel V'Lavan V'Chatzerot V'Dizahav. These are the words that Moshe spoke to all Israel on the other side of the Jordan, the eastern side, that is, concerning the wilderness, concerning the Arava, opposite the Sea of Reeds, between Paran and Tofel, and Lavan, and Chatzerot, and Dizahav. Moshe begins to talk. And it mentions just 2 verses later that it was the 40th year, in the 11th month, and the first of the month, when Moshe spoke to the children of Israel. So this is the final year of Israel's time in the wilderness. And it's the first of the 11th month. The 11th month is, of course, Adar. And, the 11th month is Shvat. And so Moshe begins to talk, and talks for 37 days, because the 7th day of Adar, 37 days later, after when he began to talk, is the day that Moshe dies. So he begins a 37-year farewell address to the children of Israel. And so I said 37 year, I meant 37 day. And so the book of Deuteronomy in its entirety presents Moshe's, in his own words, his words to Israel. Up till now, we've been reading basically the word of God as it came to Moshe. Now Moshe is going to be speaking first person from his own heart, and it's very fascinating because, of course, he goes over many, many things that we've already read. In fact, right here in the first parsha, Devarim, he talks about the spies. He talks about setting up judges. He talks about some of the battles that they fought, things we've already read about, and sometimes with a little different perspective, a little different twist. For example, mentioning the spies, he said, because of you, I can't go into the land. And that is not the answer that we read only recently in the book of Numbers. And we read that because he struck the rock and didn't speak to the rock, that Hashem said, now you're not going in. And in fact, some of our parshanim, some of our commentators say that Hashem wanted to make it very clear that Moshe was not included amongst those who were not going to go in because of the spies, as a way to, protect Moshe's honor. But now Moshe blames the spies, and he will again later in the book, very bitterly. Now, actually, he's 100% correct in that had the spies not brought back the evil report, Israel would have entered into the land in their second year after leaving Egypt. And this whole episode, which took place in the 40th year with the rock, wouldn't have happened. So yeah, they effectively caused the situation in which Moshe found himself told that he would not be going into the land. I mean, if they had gone in as on schedule as they were supposed to in the second year. Moshe would have been in the land, Aaron would have been in the land, Miriam would have been in the land. It would have been a very different situation, but that's not the way it was. So Moshe begins to talk. Throughout this book of Devarim, he'll go over things that Israel went through together. And again, he's talking now to the new generation. Oftentimes he'll address them as if they're the older generation. You did this and you did that, but they are the new generation. All the old generation now has died out. And so he talks a lot about what has already transpired, but he also talks a lot about laws and how to set up the society, this Torah society that they've been living in the wilderness for 40 years, how to transform it into a society that can flourish in the land once they're into the land and spread out, and each tribe in its own inheritance. It becomes a different challenge. And so there's many things that have to be addressed, and he addresses those things. And also much of what he says in the book of Devarim are very, very lofty, inspiring words about the land of Israel, about conquering the land, about having faith in Hashem, and loving Hashem, and being rewarded as a nation for its adherence to the commandments and its love for Hashem. It's a very, very, very inspiring book, and it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And it's all Moshe's words that he had to say, get off his chest, before he went up to Mount Nebo. Now we already read about that, right, in last week's final parsha, Mas'eh, from the book of Numbers. We're already told that Moshe was instructed by Hashem to go up to Mount Nebo, to look into the land that he won't be entering into, and, that will be it. He's going to die there. And so, before he goes up, he just has these last words to say to Israel, and those last words, of course, take 37 days. And that's what we're doing here. We're going to be reading his words for the rest of the summer. And of course it brings us right through the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It brings us right through Sukkot. And we conclude the book of Deuteronomy, Devarim, on Simchat Torah, the 8th day, Shmini Atzeret, the 8th day following the 7 days of Sukkot. Of course, it will also be an anniversary of the massacre that took place last year on Simchat Torah. So it's going to be a very, very difficult, emotional day for Israel this coming year. Simchat Torah, which is obviously traditionally a day of tremendous joy and celebration and happiness. It's going to have a different flavor this year, I'm sure. But that's the day that we conclude the book of Devarim, Deuteronomy, and begin once again the book of Bereshit, Genesis. But until then, we will be reading all about the words of Moshe to his people. I've mentioned that the 3 Haftorah readings, additional readings that we read on Shabbat from the section of the Torah known as the Prophets, which includes the books of Judges, of Samuel, of Kings, and of course all the prophets. We read 3 prophecies basically of doom, or of tochacha, of reprimanding Israel. You guys have just been behaving badly, idolatry and immorally, and you have to shape up, because if you don't, there's going to be destruction. And of course, these were the prophecies of Jeremy, Yirmiyahu, and Isaiah, Yeshayahu. And so during the 3 Shabbatot that lead up to Tisha B'Av, we read these prophecies of gloom and doom. Following Tisha B'Av, we begin to read prophecies of comfort. Everything's going to be okay. And there's 7 Shabbatot between following Tisha B'Av, leading up to Rosh Hashanah. So we have 3 Haftarot readings, which are readings of doom and gloom, and then we have 7 of comfort and positivity, of hope. So that's where we're at again. Oh, I just want to mention, very important, we are, as you may know, and maybe even anticipating, every year for the past many years, we have always released a video during the 3 weeks. And you may recall we started out with videos, the children are ready, trying to inspire people that building the temple is something that really can happen if we want it to happen. And I think that since those days when we were first sharing those videos, I think there's been a great change in consciousness and in knowledge about the temple and about the need for the temple today. And so we've slowly changed our message to move on beyond that. Anyway, over the past couple of years, I think we've had some videos where we're asking people on the street what they think, to give people an idea that people in Israel are thinking about the temple, or looking forward to it, whether they're secular, whether they're religious, whether they're this, whether they're that. But this year we did something a bit different. This year we opened the doors of the Temple Institute and interviewed our own people, the people of the Temple Institute who make it happen, the people behind the scenes who do the research, who produce the great reenactments of the temple service that we do on holidays, the Levitical choir, the yeshiva of the Temple Institute, and we actually hear in their words what they're doing, what they're hoping to achieve. Of course, the red heifer, the Praduma, and we're very excited about this video, and I hope that you will be too, to give you, everybody, a glimpse of the work of the Temple Institute, the efforts that we make. I think you'll see the passion and the people that you'll be meeting in this video, and their love for what they do, and their desire to follow through and really get to help lead Israel to the point where we're rebuilding the Holy Temple. So hopefully, I'm recording this temple talk on the 2nd of Av, and what did I say? It was the 6th of August. Hopefully, even later today, we'll be able to post the video and share it. And I encourage everybody to give it at least once over. I think you could watch it a few times and always get something more out of it. We're very excited about it because, again, it's the first time that we're really sharing and revealing some of the people who make it happen. Everything that you see online, and everything that you see when you come to Israel, when you come to Jerusalem, when you're at the Temple Institute's exhibition. Well, these are the people who make that happen, and they're working on it every day and night, tirelessly, and with tremendous love and passion and faith in the promise of the Holy Temple. I'm going to say goodbye now because there's no music, but it's time for the music. So I thank you very much for being with me, and let's all pray for the very best. Thanks for being with me. Temple Talk.